Okay, so we are recording, everybody, and I am going to share my screen. Can everybody see that? A-okay? Get some thumbs
Yeah.
up. Yeah, that's good. Excellent stuff. Superb. Great. Well, we will get ourselves underway now that I can see you all in your glory. And I will stick this up on, yeah, good. Okay, excellent. Welcome, everybody. We'll get underway this evening. You never know, we might get wrapped a few minutes early, and then we may be really late. Depends on how we do in some of the discussions that we're going to cover. Section 6. We are 6 out of 8 done from this evening. We've only 2 more to go. One more Saturday on people, and then the following one on risk. But this evening, we are going to focus in on technology. So you're very welcome. We're going to rattle through this. It'll be a more of a content evening, but I am going to build in a little bit of time for us to check in on the assignment. And I've done some updated slides, and I've uploaded a few things to the portal, but I'll cover through on those. But as ever, we'll start, stop, go. If you have any questions, come in as we go, and I'm going to try and steer us successfully to at least a 2030 finish, if not a little bit earlier on, if that's okay. So a little bit on the rolling reportage, a little bit more formal, structured and strategic this evening. Sometimes I put a little bit of fun in, but what I wanted to talk to you about this evening, or just leave with you, is some material should you wish to dive into it. I have been working in the realm of digital identity for, oh gosh, 2013, 2012, from then, so that's 13 years, there and thereabouts. Why? I had the good fortune to work for a Nordic bank, Danske Bank. Worked with them in Ireland, but across the Nordics. And, 20 plus years ago, as the internet and as the web started to become ubiquitous, much more in the Nordics than it was in Western Europe or in Iberian Europe. Why more in the Nordics? Well, they're pretty advanced economies, and Mark would know this, of course, who's with us this evening. Hey, Mark. They're sparsely populated. So they were one of the really early adopters of the internet, and they had some fantastic government initiatives. And I remember 28, 29, 2010, when digital was really firming. That's actually when we started using the word digital. Before that, it was the internet. They used to use what I used to term was a single identifier at a national level. So you had like a national number, and your tax related to that. So it's like our PPSN number or PRSI, or your PPSN number, I think we call it now. But not alone did that PPSN number serve for your public access to public records. It was also your login code that you would use for your banking. It was also your login code that you may wish to use for health services, etc., etc., etc. So it's this idea of a single digital identifier. And of course, that's how it should have been thought of from the start. But one of the failings of the internet is it didn't solve for a single digital identity. In fact, as you know, everywhere you go on the internet, you've got to serve up your identity details and to access services. And most of us have at least 100 passwords, some of us up to 200, and some of us even up to 300 different passwords. Now, we usually have different mechanisms and so on to kind of just try and ease that pain. But it's this idea of in the centralized web 2, our data sits somewhere, and we've got to get passwords to allow that data in and out. Some thinking has been emerging from quite some time to undo that flaw of the internet, much like the Nordic countries have done with a single identifier, to create what's called a digital identity ecosystem. I sat on the World Economic Forum Digital Identity Council, so I've worked in this space for quite a number of years. I do think that it is a critical infrastructural kind of support that the world needs to move forward for and solve, so that we can ease the friction and maximize access, but also provide better security and privacy controls, with the idea being that in the future, in a digital identity ecosystem, we should hold our digital data about ourselves, our digital selves. So we should hold that in our store, in our own store, perhaps in a mobile wallet. And we should be permissioning our data to be used by other services, as opposed to placing all our data in other services and having a password to get in and access it, if you get that idea. So what we essentially want to do, or what I believe should be done, is essentially data role reversal. So you may or may not have an interest in this and be aware, but this is a rapidly evolving space. If you are interested in, there's some good papers that I'll leave with you in the slide decks, mostly from or I think all of the papers that I'm providing is from the WES, the EF, the World Economic Forum, and really tells through why there is a burning platform for digital identities, and points towards there are new trust frameworks emerging now at a global basis, and very importantly, the EU digital wallet is being developed and indeed will be mandated for all European countries over the next number of years. Some of the work that I'm involved with is with the government CIO, Barry Lowry, and with a number of industry kind of collaboration groups to see if we can start to develop a national wallet, an Irish wallet for digital identity for all citizens, to be able to hold and protect their digital selves, and to be able to share that on a permission basis to access services in the digital environment. I think this is going to be a big space, and it's the whole idea of shifting from centralized data, which is kind of on the left-hand side, through to decentralized, and this idea that we'll hold our own data. So I'm not going to deep dive any more in terms of that. If you want me to kind of stay on, or going to have a chat at the end about it and find out a little bit more, please do that. But I think as we're learning about digital and learning about digital strategy in this program, I didn't want to let it pass without putting it on your radars that today we have a mixture of centralized and federated, but it's really a kind of a mesh, an amalgam, and not very helpful in terms of ease of access of services, etc., etc. But privacy is one of, and security is, of course, one of our biggest challenges, and we see that with security breaches and data breaches all the time. So digital identity, safer, stronger, self-controlled identity permissions on the web to put the data owner back in control. So big movement. You'll be seeing a lot more about this in the next couple of years. As I say, we've been talking about this for a long time, since the dawn of the internet, of course, but certainly for the last 15 years, it's something that's been building momentum. And in the next couple of years with the EU digital wallet, we are going to see national level digital identities. And of course, everybody is going to have to think about, as we shift from centralized to decentralized, how to deal with that within their products and services and within their digital propositions. So an exciting space to come, and one we'll certainly watch with plenty of interest. And there's a nice little message there from Grace, one platform in Spain, called Clave, correct, and it's access to revenue, healthcare services, council apps. Have a look at it. Grace, thank you for sharing that. Again, Iberia has been developing this. Asia, Australia, lots of countries. Yeah, it's kind of similar to MyGov, but as I understand, in Spain, it's this idea of you'll be able to access private services by using the same identifier. Essentially, that's the journey that everybody is going on. So thank you for that share. One to watch for sure. Okay, but time to get back into this evening's theme and topic. We're into technology and hardware and software, but we should do a little bit of recap on the weekend. We spent a great day on Saturday. We kind of started out after a little bit of mental survey with assignment 1, and we little bit of speed dating. Hopefully you found that fun on what was hard, what was beneficial. Again, I'm going to implore upon you that when we come together on workshops, so for instance, the last one we have is the next Saturday, when I get you into rooms and talking about, I don't want you talking about the structure, just the structure of the assignments and so on and so forth. I want you sharing and learning your experiences of how you're thinking of adopting the learning that we're trying to do together in this program, and how you're going to adapt it to your workplace, because that's where the real learning is. So let's make sure we get that balance right. But I think some good conversations that we had on Saturday. We of course well, sorry, we should mention that then we had James Luther with us, and I really hope that you enjoyed the session with James. That's the QR code again if you want to go and connect with them, and he'll of course give you a free copy of the his book, a digital copy of his book. Smashing Guy just makes the what's sometimes the horrendous simple. And then of course we jumped on and we jumped into some pre-reading where I was trying to bring a couple of, I guess, core concepts to life, and one of them was around this idea of vitality, and this concept that organizations who are progressive and are outperforming their peers focus on the vitality of their organization, which is about building the capability to execute progressive strategies, about also making sure that the right technologies in place, and it's going to nice lead into what we're going to discuss this evening, the right technology strategies, but also very importantly developing the cultures, the psychology and the behaviors and the attributes, all stuff we cover in this module. And by investing in clarity of strategy, capability, technology and culture, they're outperforming their peers and also market potential, because vitality looks at the potential of the market and the investment being made in those vital kind of dimensions: strategy, technology, capability, and culture, and that you can see there on the right hand side. So it's at the very heart of this program. The idea that we're spending in this module is, what are they?
Hey, Garba.
Yes. Hello. You jumped in there.
Sorry, I don't know if sorry, yeah, to interrupt you. I don't know if
That's
it's only
okay.
me, but your audio is it's a little bit lagging, like with delay.
Okay. All right.
I don't know
Okay.
if it's
So
on.
I'm having a funny internet evening, am I?
Yes, I think you are
How,
having
how is it now, folks?
the
Is it okay now? Is it no? It's not doing any better.
No. Yeah,
Okay. Bear with me a
little
second
bit.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing here. So thank you for the heads up. Really appreciate that. Yeah, I'm on the right internet. Yeah, it's because it's boosted here to where I am, but it may just not be performing itself. How is it now, folks? Is it any better? No. Okay, not any better there.
mm, no. It's
Still.
showing to me like you are having issues with the connection
Okay,
again.
because I'm on my strongest connection here. It just must be an infrastructural issue, because I have three different internets, or three different networks that I can access. But this is showing currently the best of those. If
Yeah, it seems to be getting better. Yeah.
seems to be getting better, is it? It
Yeah,
could just
yeah,
be
yeah.
yeah, it just could be a short-term glitch. You never know. My young son may just have pulled the router off the wall or something absolutely outrageous in temper. Um, you know how it goes. How's that? Is any good? Any okay? Yeah, we're all right. Is it good enough to keep going, or should I dial off and dial back in again?
No, it's fine.
No, it's fine, Garba.
Okay. Okay, very good. Let's keep going. Brilliant stuff. Okay, so you can now see me and you can now hear me. See the slides, hear me. Everybody okay?
Yep.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Brilliant. Thanks for
Yeah.
jumping in. Super. It's worth just stalling that couple of seconds to make sure we had the quality right. Okay, so investing in one's vitality results in outperformance. That's
Gone
Yeah,
again. You're
it's
gone again.
freezing and
Ah,
yes.
it's absolutely terrible. It normally does.
Oh no, now it's actually
It's
better.
okay. Yeah. Let's keep going. We keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Very seldom this happens, and if it does, it's usually as I say, an infrastructure, like a kind of a local rather than a house issue, but you never know. So sorry. Okay, let's keep going. We talked about vitality. I also brought you through some of McKinsey's thinking about, you know, right leaders in place, capabilities, empowering people, you know, all kind of very similar stuff. And if you remember, I brought you through some detailed McKinsey surveys, albeit a couple of years old, no reason to update them, the importance of communications, the importance of tooling, and the importance of collaboration. So you'll have picked all that up as well. And then very much the idea of pace and velocity, and those that do things more frequently and faster, again, are the ones that are showing the top economic performance. And that was really all about pointing us towards thinking biologically, this whole idea of thinking ambidexterity, which is coupling with investing in our vitality in order to grow into the future, being able to also to continue to sweat the core of our business. And the more we sweat the core, we evolve our core business, the more we can invest in the vitality muscles of the future. And therefore leaders must sweat their core to generate the investment capacity to put it into being a vital organization. And that's all about being successful today and setting down the paving stones to be successful into the future. And we talked about, you know, the necessity, why that's important, and because, well, look, we've moved from a world of being very, very simple to a world that's very, very complex in a very short period of time. And you remember I've talked through this slide. If you weren't with us, you can look back on the recording from Saturday. But essentially, we've gone from, you know, in the past and not so very long ago, a kind of a much simpler set of capabilities and organizational construct in terms of proposition, in terms of the platform, and in terms of the people. But today it is exploding, and the more it explodes, the more we must simplify and extract value from today in order to invest in the value for tomorrow. And the value for tomorrow investment is around that vitality that I've talked about. And then finally, we'll have shared with you the transcendence map, and you'll have done a little bit of scenario planning around the FARA use case and the insurance company. And the whole idea of that was about getting us fit to start entering into our transformation mapping, which will be part of assignment 2. So we'll pause there on assignment 2. I'm going to come back and share with you some updated slides on assignment 2, but I shall do that a little bit later on, if that's okay. So anybody, any questions or queries? Anybody want to tell me, hopefully my internet's okay? Is it all right again? Yeah, okay, I'm getting some smiles, so that probably sounds
Fine. Fine.
Yeah, certainly better now. Yeah.
Certainly better now. Okay, sorry about that a little bit earlier on, folks. That's the way it goes. Okay, any questions, any queries, any overhangs from Saturday and workshop 2 or session 5, whatever we want to call it? Anything you want to check in on? No. Okay, well, we're going to move on to technology if that's the case. And what I'm going to say to you is, before we jump in here, got a kind of about 30 minutes that I want to do with you on this evening. I'm going to show you and give you and kind of do my usual puddle hop through some material, give you the high level messages, leave the material with you for reading. But I want to get on to spending a little bit of time on assignment 2. But I also want to leave a little bit of open mic time this evening. And what I mean by open mic time is we're going to leave enough space at the end of this session, so that if you've got some queries or thoughts, or if there's something on your mind, if there's something you want to share, if there's something to test, if there's something you're unsure about, if there's something you disagree with or want to challenge, brilliant, love all that. Let's please use some extra time this evening in the wrap up, so that we kind of have that just free time, open mic time, if that sounds okay. And as we go along this evening, if you want to pop any questions, any thoughts, any queries, any themes, even to just tease out a little bit further, I'd be delighted to do that. Maybe other people would be delighted that you might just, you know, kind of raise those, because maybe there are things on your minds that will undoubtedly be on other people's minds, but even they may not even be able to articulate it. So if you have something you want to discuss a little bit more, let's make sure we make time to do that this evening. And if there isn't, of course, we'll all get off a little bit early, but we're here till half 8, and we have the time and space to do that. So what I'm going to do from here is a little bit on technology and the engine of the digital of a digital business. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on some updated slides on assignment 2 that I did upload to the portal earlier on today. So I just kind of sharpened it up to give you a little bit of a clearer set of direction, and I updated some of the templates. So it's the second thing we'll do. And the third thing we'll do is some open mic time, and we've got just under an hour and 10 minutes to do all that. Does that sound okay with you? Everybody okay with that this evening? Yeah, all good? Everybody good? Yeah, good? Okay, we'll do shout. Just jump in as you have, if you did. Okay, so let's talk about technology for a little bit. As I kind of say here in the slide, it might be odd that we only get technology at the end, but it's not by coincidence nor poor design. It's very definitely on purpose, because any modern progressive CIO, CTO, or engineer will say, the technology is there to serve the strategy. So we become strategy and user first. But of course, we've got to combine the supply and demand, and we'll talk a little bit about this evening. So, what I'm going to spend a little bit of time on is giving you some frames of reference for is around how we might think about the construct of technology, e.g. how do we architect technology, and what are the principles that we should use for technology selection, for technology integration and construction, and then for technology utilization. So that's what I'm going to try and cover this afternoon. We're not like in most of the themes, we're not going to get deep down into technology engineering. We're keeping this, and rightly so, at a strategic direction. So this is kind of a strategic perspective on how to think about, how to assess, and how to have a conversation in an organization to ensure that we've got the technology underpin that enables a digital strategy. So this is the digital technology for digital strategy. So that's what we're going to try and do. And in the great words of Steve Jobs, it never starts with the technology. You got to work from the experience. You got to work from the user. You got to work from the strategy back into the technology. And that's kind of really what's going on this slide as we look from the left, as we look across the right. In the very first session and coming out of module 1, if you've done that with Kelvin, or in this first session, I would have done a little recap on strategy. And what is strategy? It's figuring out where you are, where you want to go, and what you need to do to get there. And then if you remember also in that kind of first session together, I gave you that digital 360, and I said, look, in this program, we're going to be thinking about how does digital get deployed in the marketplace, and to enable engagement, to build propositions, with underpinning processes, and to empower a workplace. And all that should be built upon solid, progressive, innovative technology and operating structures. And therefore, we're kind of saying that technology is the first platform that we need to wrap around our 7 capabilities that we've touched on: experience, efficiency, digital engagement, etc. But it starts with strategy. We need to look through the lens of capability. But ultimately, when we're thinking about strategy on the right-hand side, I've kind of given you a very, very, very kind of, it's a kind of dumbed down kind of architecture for how we normally picture and how we normally think through technology layers of the technology stack. And it kind of starts out at the very front with the channels where we meet the market. So we might think about colleague channels. So that's giving the technology to our colleagues in order for them to engage the market, customers or partners if you're in a B2B arrangement, of course, direct to customer channels. And of course, more and more, because we're moving in, or we're in and moving further into kind of this idea of open, this idea of engaging with ecosystems. Well, therefore, we need channels to be able to engage with other platforms, with other partners, so that we can place ourselves in their environments. So e.g., if as a bank or as an insurer or as a telco, I wanted to present and offer my services in somebody else's environment, e.g. Amazon, then we would need to think about a partner or a platform channel. In behind our channels, then we think about marketing, communications, and content. So that's where we have technologies that help us to construct and then push what we want to say in the channels out there. And in behind that, of course, linking back to that digital identity, we've got to, as we want people to come in and do business with us digitally, we've got the security layer, but we've also got the functionality and the orchestration layer. So that's where we guide and we sign and we orchestrate journeys and bring people down through the right technology journeys, which should be a map of what are those customer or those experience journeys that we want to identify. And underneath that, we've got the analytics layer, and that's where we kind of hold the data. That's where we extract our insights, and that's where we build analytics products and reporting, so business intelligence and so on and so forth. But also that's where we build our generative AI or our AI capability tends to sit much deeper down and very close to, very naturally, our product, our finance, our HR, and our reporting systems. They tend to be our enterprise systems, and that's usually where we book customers, where we hold the product information, and that's where we kind of have our that's where we do our business, and we can see our business. It's down in that enterprise layer, and of course, all those technologies that sit in those layers above need to be housed and need to be supported by infrastructure, and that's infrastructure for hardware and for software, and indeed, very importantly, for security as well. And that infrastructure is the foundations upon which our technology stacks sit. Taking that one step further, how we often then think about constructing the right technology architecture is we start to map the functional capabilities that we need in each one of the to each one of the layers, which in turn helps us to kind of componentize or modularize, what technologies we want to do what where. So you can see there on the left-hand side, I've kind of got some functional capabilities. So the idea about the channel layers, we obviously want web, or we want mobile, or we want social capabilities. So the enablement to engage the market through those channels. Down in the marketing layer, for instance, we want push and we want pull capabilities. So push is the ability for us to present to content to customers, to users, to businesses, to partners in a particular place at a particular time in a particular way. And then, of course, we want to be able to pull those customers down into our journeys. So we've got both push and pull, but we've got audience management, we've got personalization tools. So these are the headline or an example. They're not composite and it's not exhaustive, but it's giving you an idea of how we kind of use the layers on the right, and then we start understanding what functional capability we need in the layers. And all of that helps us then to be able to identify for journeys that we want to build or for jobs that we want to do in our strategy, what amalgamation or what construct or what amalgam of functions we need to execute certain journeys or certain jobs. So for instance, in building awareness and acquisition in the marketplace, we want to be able to use advanced analytics in the data layer, with segment interpretation and profiling probably up in the marketing and communication layer, along with single identity management, back to digital identity, and that fun capability might sit down in the infrastructure layer. The authorization service might sit up at the service layer, and then lead management might sit out at the channel layer. So what I'm trying to show you is an idea that, we start with an architecture on the right-hand side. We understand what capability we should have in each architecture, in each layer of the architecture, And then we start to say to ourselves, right, to execute journeys or execute certain services or deliver certain products, now we can start to see what functionality we need, and we can start, and I'll come to it in a second, we can start thinking about how do we join up the functionality in such a way that it provides a comprehensive, but also an effective, but also a very efficient technology solution for a compelling experience that we want to provide, again, to colleagues, to customers, partners, platforms, or indeed other businesses. And on the right hand side, just a sample of sometimes how we do some scoring to understand, very similar to how we're doing our vector scoring, but how we might do some scoring in relation to what is our digital capability coverage. And that would be like basically doing a green, amber, red score on the kind of the functional capability on the left in order to meet our requirements on the right hand side. So hopefully that's making sense to you. We don't start with applications and work backwards. In technology, what we should be doing is having a strategic framework, which is the architecture, and understanding what functionality we need in order to execute the job to be done. So that's really what Steve Jobs is talking about. Let's understand the experience, let's understand the journey, let's understand the service that we want. Then we should understand what functionality we need, and that should lead us to identifying what technologies we need to integrate in what parts of the stack where in order to deliver on the job to be done. And lots of times you and I will have seen, the frenicity of saying, wow, this new technology, there's less today, but certainly 10 years ago, I seen a lot of this where people were running around with technologies looking for a job to be done, as opposed to starting with the job to be done and then figuring out what technology to use. There is a universe of technologies available to us. This is just a kind of a sample of digital marketing tools and technologies that one can use. Mark, I heard you coming in.
It's interesting that you say it like about technology, almost like looking for a home. And what's the best example of that at the moment? The hundreds of billions of dollars that are being splurged on AI, Gen AI. Oh, got to find a home for it. Yeah. Got to go and open my WhatsApp, and suddenly it's got Gen AI sitting in the background. Yeah. Nobody's asking for it, but let's go and find a home for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's
Is that not
exactly Mark? Yeah. It's the current use case. I probably did this slide a couple of years ago when there was a lot of marketeers running around with a lot of content marketing and a lot of early kind of AI, Gen AI, pre-generative, but more in kind of the when deep learning was becoming popular. Again, idea here being there are any amount of technologies. What we should do is start with the job we want to do. And then, again, I've just given you kind of a sample of what a Gartner Magic Quadrant map looks like. We then, while there's all the technologies out there, there are also great resources such as Gartner, such as Forrester, that can help with kind of early screening of what's the right type of technologies we should be considering for this type of job. But there is nothing like, the kind of working from the user, working from the job, working from the customer back in. So this screening that Forrester, Gartner, and there are many other tools and platforms that do this for us now, it can help us to kind of glean a shopping list for sure. But, always the big call out is let's stay away from the software pitches, work backwards, and try and think about the jobs to be done. So thinking through what's the experience we want to deliver, what's the capability required, and then what's the right technologies in order to enable that. But in order for the technologies to come together, to work together, so that they deliver on the promise and the experience that you're trying to, design, but also so that they're doing that in an efficient way, also so they're doing that on a basis that can be adaptable for future reuse and for flexibility, and also so that it can be done as cheaply as possible. It's really important when we're constructing our technologies into kind of the stack or into the architecture, that we're using a kind of a modern design principles, and that those design principles are deployed and used in order to deliver the success factors on the right hand side. As I say at the top here, we're not going to go too deep on in technology and tech and into the technical and into the engineering. What we're saying is, all of us as digital leaders, we need to be able to have a conversation in the organization to approach technology selection and evaluation in the right way. But equally, we need to make sure that we're having the right conversation around how the technology strategy and the architecture is being constructed and run, so that it can deliver on the promise. It's being elastic and scalable, so that it can be done efficiently, and that it's adaptive. In other words, so that it gives you flexibility. And those design principles on the left-hand side are talking to how we should construct, put together, and engineer applications together in order to create that fluent experience, but also that efficiency, that adaptability, and also the scalability, and very importantly the security, which are kind of mentioned below at the left. So they're a really good set of design principles to have in hand, to be able to bring to table as a strategist and evaluate our technologies being assembled and integrated together in a discrete and a componentized way, so that each technology is housed. We know what it does. It's virtualized, as it says there, in the containers. So and hopefully in the cloud. I'll come back and touch the cloud in a little while. So that we know what can be done. If we need to make changes to that service that technology is providing, we only have to go in and make changes in that service, upgrade that service, etc., instead of having to upgrade all the services that are connected to it. But also so they can be reused and deployed, and also so we can link back and support that idea of, if we understand the journeys and the capability, the functional capability required, then we should be able to access the technology services, deliver on the ambition. When we're constructing our technology, it needs to be accessible and consumable. So it needs to, again, that containerization is really important, so that it can be scaled, it can be reused, and APIs, and I'll touch that on a second as well, is really important. The technologies that we use to connect technologies, and they're called application program interfaces, or APIs. Touch on that in a second. And we need to make sure that, as we're thinking about each technology and the technology structure as a whole, that it can leverage cloud infrastructure and security, so that it's scalable, scale up, and also scale down. There's no bigger sin than investing in technology and capacity and storage that's not utilized, because that's just throwing money away, and it's resource waste. So again, thinking about right sizing, but creating elasticity in our technology stack, so we can expand and contract technology space and utilization depending on the demand side of things, because every single bit of technology costs money to provision, to use, and to maintain and upgrade. It's got to be ecosystem ready. I'll come back to that. That's the API strategy in many ways, and it's got to then be the type of technology that agile teams can work with, that can be automated, so that much technology tasks don't require manual interventions. Indeed, that's in the upgrade paths, that automatic upgrades. We see that in a lot of our consumer technologies, but at enterprise technologies, maybe not so much in the past, but we're seeing it more now. And of course, you've got to have security. And all of those design principles are to enable those success factors that I think I've touched on already. Enable collaboration, keep things safe and secure, and then to be allowed to deliver on the promise of experience, but to do it with a value lens, i.e. efficient experience delivery. I touch on other areas I'll come back on in the risk session we'll have on our very last Tuesday about governance. It's really important that we put the right governance around our technology to make sure that we can develop it, we can upgrade it, we can downgrade it, we can change it. So we'll have for flexibility, but also security being really important as well. And of course, technology is only as good as the user. So it's never the code, it's always the coder. So that point about talent and operating models, as we change our technology, as we upgrade technology, we need to upgrade our people to use the technology. Goes without saying, but very important part of the construct as well. So let me just touch for a minute or two on APIs, because APIs, or application program interfaces, are the connectors. They're the ways in which we connect technology, so data and instruction can pass to one component to another, e.g. from the channels layer back to the content layer, back to the data layer, back to the enterprise layer, etc., etc. And an API strategy needs to facilitate this unpacking of these services for developers, so that we can, minimize what job is being done in each technology, and so that those jobs can be connected together to create those journeys, but also so that we have flexibility to reuse those services in those components for building multiple journeys. Because if we don't do that, we end up with spaghetti. And plenty of you will have heard this idea of spaghetti technologies, which is kind of kind of just building out, services and services and services and services, because we're not doing it and connecting it in a smart way. So therefore, APIs are the way to build the bridges between technologies in a smart, composable, in a reusable way. So they essentially connect and package up internal services to create those comprehensive propositions, both to customer, but also when participating in partnerships or in platforms as well. And they, on the right hand side there, I've got some of the best use guidance around user mapping. So one of the ways that we smartly understand how to construct technologies and the right kind of APIs to connect them with is to build personas. So develop out those experiences, those journeys, and build personas of the users, and design the API services, but also the tools for developing technologies and the APIs themselves and their formats to enable adaption, i.e. don't build for one journey, build multiple journeys, multiple personas, and make sure that your technology and your APIs that connect the technologies can be reused to allow for that scalable, elastic, but with that really important safety and security in mind at every layer. I don't need to go through all of these. You can see them yourself on screen. So hopefully that's given you a good overview about how to think about technology, kind of strategy, design principles, and connectivity. Kind of a micro version of the macro is, to think about data analytics, and given its importance, Mark touched on it, it's on everybody's lips, it's on every board that I'm at, it's in every strategy that I'm working on presently. Is, how are we going to get our data in good shape, and how are we going to leverage it to create value? Well, there's a kind of a micro architecture on this slide. I'll leave it with you. You can read it later on, but it's the same idea of starting at the front. So how do we use data analytics? How do we utilize it? Kind of at the top in terms of analytics product. And then there's typically an analytics stack, or a data analytics stack, which works from utilization back to services and storage, and then ingestion and processing back into core systems and data systems, and again, all based on solid infrastructure and security. Some good links down the bottom to McKinsey and so on and so forth. But definitely, if you're interested in data analytics, have a look at this. Okay. Hopefully that's okay, everybody. Is my line still doing okay? The line's holding up. Great. Are you holding up? You're okay. Am I holding up? I think I'm doing okay this end, but you should be the judge of that. Okay, so hopefully that's okay so far. Any questions before I go on? You're all doing okay? Alrighty. Okay, so what I've just kind of described is utopia, because we all love to have this clean kind of microservice architectures, you know, all drawn out, and I've seen so many of these maps all drawn out, and it's lovely, it's lovely, it's lovely. The reality is, and I'm not going to attempt to read this slide, but I will talk to the schema on the bottom right, is most of us live with legacy, which means, you know, we've got old technologies, they've been connected together in inflexible ways, hardwired as opposed to API'd. And it's stuff that's maybe, you know, on-prem, it's not in the cloud, it doesn't have that elasticity, etc., etc. And you can read this, and I've got a bundle of slides following it that talk about the path to modernization, because in reality, most organizations, even 5-year-old organizations, sometimes I go into, I was with a firm, maybe not 5, but I was with an 8-year-old firm last week, and I was talking to them about legacy. And they were looking at me like I had a hole in the head, and I was saying, no, look, you know, folks, what you did, if you didn't have a you know, today's strategy for technology 8 years ago, you've probably created some boundaries, some handcuffs, and you've probably got some legacy. And when we talked it through, they said, yeah, you know, and the point being, organizations, you know, regardless of how, you know, tangled the legacy is or not, organizations need to be constantly pruning and working on their technology strategy and their technology estate, evaluating the fitness of the technology, understanding how it's interconnected, and understanding then how well their organization is working with it. And that's a perpetual thing, because technology is being modernized all the time. Our ability to use it is being upgraded all the time, and as I say, all the technologies are constantly on an upgrade path. Other new technologies coming in, there are old technologies that need to be retired. This needs constant management, and a way to perhaps think about that is down on the bottom right, is looking through the lens of what's the business problem we're trying to solve, and what's the technology problem that we might have, and kind of creating heat maps. Now there is a little bit further down a heat map that I'll show you, and this is from Bain. And Bain kind of, you know, show this kind of very similar to what I've just shown you there, is this idea of, you know, understanding the business need over here. So it might be data-driven decisions or customer experience, and then understanding which technology layer is being used to enable that, to identify, you know, which technologies have the most impact on business strategy. So that's a useful lens to look at, and that helps to, you know, see the wood from the trees in terms of, as if you have legacy, which technologies you need to tackle first, because typically in legacies you'll have lots of technology challenges. You won't be able to replace them all. You won't be able to undo all your own technology. You'll be thinking about a technology refresh pathway. But to kind of summarize all that up a little bit more here, there's typically, down here I've identified, there's typically 5 paths that organizations follow. Sometimes the legacy is just too complex to undo, and the necessity to move at pace is too great. So sometimes organizations start a greenfield. So they basically ignore the old technology, they build a brand new technology stack, nice and clean, with the kind of, you know, principles and API strategies that I've talked about, and they kind of start again. And over time, what they do is they transition customers or transition services from the legacy onto the new. Sounds easy, but you are then managing what's called coexistence. So you're managing an old stack and a new stack, and you're trying to manage the bridge and the transfer between both. And that is a very complex thing to do, particularly at an enterprise level, where it's a multi-year program, where you're trying to unbundle functionality, you know, build new functionality and create the links between the two. It's really complex, it's really messy. I was in a program where we did that for a couple of years. It takes a lot of dexterity, but it can be done. Often what you will find is organizations then on the left-hand side of this work from the channel back. So they work from the point of most value, which is kind of thinking about, you know, Steve Jobs, work from the customer backwards. So they remediate their channels, they remediate their marketing, they try and improve the experience at the front first, and then over time they try and tackle the kind of underpinning or the deeper technology channels at the layer. If your layers are unbundled, that's easier to do if there's hard coding. So what do I mean by that? If a service up at the channel layer is actually coded down at the core enterprise layer, and it's kind of that tightly bound, that makes it kind of difficult to do. So what we've seen more prevalent in the last couple of years is organizations actually taking this journey approach. So that's kind of one in the middle, where we're saying, what's the journey that's most important to us? So it could be an onboarding journey, it could be a product sale journey, whatever it's going to be. And we're going to build our new technologies, or we're going to refurbish the technologies required to do that. And again, all of this links back to functional mapping in an architecture to be able to allow all of that. Lots and lots of organizations have enterprise systems that are really kind of just grubby, that are really kind of, you know, swampy, and that are very old, you know, 40, even up to 50 years old now. And with a lot of code and a lot of services sitting down there. So, you know, lots of organizations are trying to replace their core systems. So telcos have been doing that for years, banks have been doing it for years, farmers have been doing it for years. Regulated firms, you know, it's much more comprehensive in core systems because they require them, and also where there's sensitive data. So again, medical firms, banks, etc., and they've got really kind of, you know, stodgy, you know, and kind of, you know, stuck kind of cores. It's very complex to swap a core, particularly where, you know, you've got a lot of services, you know, maybe being, you know, having been coded at the wrong layer. So the unpacking is difficult, and sometimes there's an entire rebuild, which is very seldom. But they're typically the 5 pathways. And as I say, I've left some slides in for you on with kind of some headlines for banks. You know, modernizing technology. I mean, it has become a perpetual challenge. Because banks were one of the first adopters of technology at an enterprise level to really make progressive efficiency and also expansion of services. A lovely piece that focused in a Commonwealth Bank of Australia. It took them 9-10 years to replace their core. They went through many a trial and tribulation, but they successfully did it. So it's worth a paper worth reading. And again, some more from Bain, which I think it just summarizes what I've already said to you. There's no single route to modernization, and it often requires, again, you know, an ambidextrous approach. You might start at the customer engagement layer, you might start end to end, it might be the core. You know, every circumstance is different and requires a different strategy. So there's no one size fits all, and I think that's an important point I wanted to part with you this evening. This is just a slide. You may find it useful to read on, you know, as a transformation leader, you know, you'll be thinking not just about technology, but you're thinking about what's the experience, what's the capabilities, what's the technologies that we need in order to deliver it. These are the kind of 10 questions that CEOs or transformation leaders or CIOs or technology leaders need to be asking in order to, you know, say, you know, have we got the right technology strategy to move us forward? Conrad, brilliant, you have your hand up.
Yeah,
Right,
just a question for you. Do you think companies lose more and more control over their IT and their infrastructure as they move towards the cloud rather than on-prem, and also to the kind of the likes of the HCLs and the outsourced cognizance providers?
Yeah.
Is that something that needs to be considered in your digital strategy?
Yeah, no, it does absolutely, and I have a couple of slides in the back on cloud, Conrad. So brilliant time to jump to them, right? But let me just kind of show people. I've got those couple of slides. So this is 10 questions you need to ask as a CEO to your CIO, and then these are just some more recent thinking again from McKinsey, but it's all kind of telling you the same as I've already told you, to change and to not change and so on and so forth. So stuff you can have a look at later on. Conrad, lovely jump in. Again, there's no single answer, is what I found in my experience, Conrad, of working on these things for 20 plus years. So the promise of cloud and what is cloud, it's basically, instead of you having to buy the end-to-end stack, you outsource that and you access it over the internet. So the infrastructure, the enterprise technology services, the data layers, exactly, that can all be outsourced. You no longer have to buy that. You can basically ingest it or access it over virtual networks. So that's what cloud is in general, but there's a couple of then different versions of how you can access technology bundles from the cloud. So it's this idea of software as a service. So what we do, folks, in where we use Microsoft is a bit like your app store. So each app is a piece of software. You buy it from the app store and you use it as a service. So that's what software as a service, the simple version is. Platforms as a service tend to be where you're buying a bundle of service in a pre-packaged solution. And that's, Conrad, I think what you're talking about is the idea maybe banking in a box or something like that. You may or may not mean that, but let me say that that sometimes organizations can think of buying banking in a box or telco in a box, and there are they're sold as kind of complete solutions, e.g. buying a whole technology stack from a cloud provider. And it's all pre-amalgamated and it's all pre-ordained and pre-constructed. So if I take that to answer your question, Conrad, and Malgrat, I'll get you in a second. If I take that to answer your question, sometimes maybe for smaller organizations that just can't make the lift from unbundling a core to building that themselves, the coexistence is too much, or they don't have the resources, that can be a path forward. And we are seeing more and more of that in the world. Why? Because the longer organizations go along, the more complex their legacy is. At the same time, the more fluent and the more vibrant and the more efficient that these packages are becoming, and therefore supply and demand is becoming an easier mix. Okay, so sometimes you can buy your platform services, so an amalgamation of services, pre-contained, pre-integrated, that will do journeys for you. So not just functions, but actual technologies structured together that will enable journeys as opposed to individual functions. So that can be better if you don't have the wherewithal to do it yourself. But I think you're leading to, it's a really long answer, Conrad, sorry, but I'm kind of giving a couple of answers at the same time here.
You're okay.
So it can be beneficial. Now, watch out is if you buy into platform as a service, particularly if it's what they call the utility. This is the version I have. That's kind of the word I'm going to use for you, right? So if it's a utility platform as a service, e.g., it's not your stack in the cloud, it's accessing a stack in the cloud that multiple partners are also accessing. You can really confine yourself, because then you're dependent on the package's progress as a whole to basically set out your progress. You may be willing to live with that because your constraints may give you no other choice, and that's your constraints of transitioning, or your operational constraints, maybe your resources, or maybe just your size and scale. So the pros and the cons are, you can buy a package and it can move you forward. That's the pro, and that can get you out of trouble. The con is that you're going to get the same as everybody else is getting when it's that utility. So therefore you don't have adaptability, flexibility, and then your technology, you move to the lowest common denominator as opposed to the highest one. So Conrad, I better stop there and see if I've made any attempt at all to answer your question. At the risk I haven't.
Yeah, no, you kind of made a couple of good points there. I suppose I was kind of more thinking, once you move, like, you either pay for it now and have it in-house, or you end up paying the same or more in the long run when you go to the cloud, because you're on their platform and you're renting it.
Yeah.
Whereas previously you had perpetual licenses and you owned it and you could run it into the ground. Whereas once you go to the cloud, you're kind of caught in that loop.
You are, yeah, absolutely. And then there's different ways you can be in the cloud. So, you know, you can be in the utility, you can be in private cloud, you can be in public cloud. But it's a trade-off, always a trade-off in these decisions, Conrad. And you've touched on it, you've pointed to it. It's exactly right. A trade-off is the cost to buy and maintain, and the adaptability that you're going to get from that, and the flexibility that you're going to harness from that. Is that going to be better or worse than, you know, you not buying it and controlling it yourself, and you outsourcing both the provisioning of the technology services and the provisioning of the capacity of the technology services? And there's usually a complex enough kind of equation that you need to answer in behind that. But they're the principles, I think, Conrad, that you and I are talking about that are really important for everybody. Does that make sense?
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Great question.
So, Garvin,
Michael's
yes, so in short, which actually system would be more effective, highly scalable, more flexible, and more actually secure? Would that be the cloud, or would that be the DFS?
So when you say DFS, just give me the
distribution file system. So like the system, for example, I think one of them is Apache. When you have like multiple servers and they are actually that's physical servers.
Yeah.
That you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the conceptual answer.
They are connected to a network.
Yeah. So the conceptual answer is, if you're not a global enterprise, you're probably not able to provision and
from the business point of view.
Yeah, no,
which
no.
would be actually better to invest in.
So again, conceptually, cloud is intended to and is enabling most organizations to give that flexibility, scalability, elasticity, all those principles, right?
And cost effective. And which one is cheaper for the business, and which one actually it's more expensive?
Conceptually, right? Conceptually, there are circumstances where people are buying into cloud services, locking themselves into license agreements, not constructing those correctly, over purchasing, over provisioning, and so on and so forth, where it can be a zero-sum game, or even it can be a negative. There can be a negative return once it's at it. So I don't want to give you a binary answer, right?
And secure from the point of view of the business and the customer.
Actually,
client.
I usually
to keep the data, for example, the big data when you have like.
So I usually find that cloud services are, you know, at the.
Because I was doing actually the.
Yeah. So I usually would say cloud services are usually at the frontier of security services and security upgrades, because that's where they do have scale, and that's where they're provisioning, and that they've got really robust services. But again, I can't give you a single answer in relation to that, because, you know, as an organization, you'd have to be evaluating your cloud provider and making sure that they're gold standard. I work with technology companies, and we look at data and cloud providers, and they don't all provide the brass, you know, the gold plate standard. In fact, it could be bronze, or it could be less. So again, conceptually, yes. Yes. In reality, that, you know, the devil is in the detail.
I'm actually asking because I came across different, and I'm not a IT expert, so that's why I came across different types of definitions and different types of actually interpretations. So that's why I'm asking, and different sources actually say different things.
Yes.
So I would like to, that's why I actually ask you also about your opinion on the.
Yeah. and I can't give you a single opinion because there is no such thing as a single opinion. So sorry, I know that's a pain, but
yeah, but what is your personal view?
so my experience is that cloud services
And experience and your personal, actually, yes, experience with when you worked, and your personal view on the.
Yeah. So my experience based on and which leads to my personal opinion is that cloud, we should have a cloud first strategy but to be proved. So in each circumstance, you've got to prove that cloud will outperform for you based on the kind of, the principles and so on that I'm describing.
And probably environmentally more friendly, would that be? Than to be like the big servers and
again,
stuff?
conceptually, yes.
Or
so I would say conceptually yes. So my experiences and my personal opinion is yes. That with the scale and the capacity that the big providers have, cloud providers and so on, that they are probably able to do things quicker, better, and faster than we are.
And from point of view of security, yes, security, because this is like I read in some of the actually articles that DFS is more secure from the point of view of the business, and cloud would have actually security issues.
Can be the case. It depends on the provisioning. It depends on the interconnectivity. It depends on your API strategies. It depends on the cloud, the data center providers. I mean, there's a whole.
I think with digital and online, actually, security is very. Actually, it's for me personally, it's a key, and it's very very
evaluation
important
point, isn't it? Absolutely, that. I'm keen to get to Kenneth. He's had his hand up for a little while. Kenneth, how you doing?
Good. There's more point than anything else in terms of cloud. So we made a decision to move away from some Microsoft services because they had basically put it out there. They were moving towards cloud services, specifically Power BI and a few other tools. So a contract was engaged with a different vendor for a totally different platform, which is now a massive transformation project. And the platform they've picked have gone cloud-based. And it's purely that there's a security decision, but I think increasingly you're just not going to get away from it. And I think that's just the way it's going.
Yeah, 100%. Great point to bring in, which is, this is such a fluid space, but there is the glide and the drift is certainly towards the cloud, and the benefits look like they outstrip kind of traditional provisioning. But like that, there'll be decisions made, and security and stability. There'll be lots of the reasons. Again, I would caution and say that sometimes we overly conservatively are evaluating, and sometimes we're under conservatively evaluating, and sometimes technology and business have different needs and different requirements, and there's an important balancing act to be done there. There's always multiple factors for selection, and they've got to be weighted and put together, but baking adaptability into technology selection is really important. In your point, Ken, is that it changes over time. Conrad, how you doing?
Yeah, sorry again. I also think this is leading to the rise of the third-party software service providers.
Yeah.
So the likes, coming from my background, I used to work for a company called Origina.
Yeah.
They do third-party software support for IBM. Yeah. So there's a lot of companies that don't want to be forced into the cloud because of subscription models and things like that, where they've previously bought their licenses. Yeah. So now there's more and more companies coming into the market that will say, we'll support your legacy systems, we'll help you, because I think there's a growing resistance to being forced into the cloud for upgrades.
Yeah.
Whereas new technology, I think there's a more acceptance of it.
Yeah.
But people who bought licenses want to stay on the license that they bought rather than being forced.
Yeah.
To cross.
Agreed. And I think a lot of the points that we're after discussing are in the discussion are captured in that. Malgorzata, I have a quick question, and then we're going to belt on.
Yes, so just a quick question. So except DFS and cloud, so these are those two main storages actually on the market. So is there any other alternative to cloud or DFS?
Yeah. Well, you can I go back here, and again, just if people do get a chance to read this slide, I mean, there's public cloud, there's private cloud, there's hybrid, there's both put together. And people, what I find is there's a migration to the cloud happening. So that's the general trend. So people will have on-prem solutions, DFS solutions. People will have cloud solutions. As they're building their knowledge, as they're building their risk structures and their governance, as they're simplifying their estates, as they're learning, as they're seeing the adoption and the evolution, probably what we're mostly seeing is hybrid, Malgorzata, which is we're picking the right technologies that are cloud-based, the right technologies that are prem-based. There'll be all kinds of reasons for that kind of the hybrid, but probably the
So
hybrid.
mixing, but the different solutions.
Based. Yeah, exactly. And that's again, sorry, I didn't get a chance just with time to mention that, but that's kind of the big bullet point and the fourth one down that's there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good, brilliant. Thank you very much for that. Okay. And we've talked about the benefits and some watch outs, and I think I've included most of those in the great questions that we've got. So it's 2014. I'm conscious of just making sure I spend a little bit of time on assignment 2. I have updated these slides, and I have parked them in the portal in the assignment 2 resource area. They're up there since today. I will update tonight's slides in there. By the way, I'll put James's leading impactful teams. I uploaded his slides in the slide folder. They're up there for you as well. Hopefully, as I'm talking, you're getting a chance to read the assignment 2 guidance. So this is what I've updated and I've put in there today. What we want you to do in assignment 2 is to develop that transformation roadmap for your chosen organization and your strategy. We want you to take into account what you've learned so far in the program, and we want that roadmap to be the thing that sets the course for building, a digital business and mobilizing transformation. So, and implicit in that, building on the learning, building on the insights. We want to. Sorry, that's kind of almost double, so I'll cleanse that down. Let me go down and talk to the bullet points. The notes for building the roadmap. So we want you to complete an assessment of the remaining 3 capabilities. So tonight we're covering technology. We'll do people in a week and a half's time, and then we'll do risk on the Tuesday after that. So that'll be technology, people, and risk. And we want you to put that together with the 7 you've already done for assignment 1. You see them named out there. So then you'll have a 10 vector assessments done, and I'll give you this a template. It's been uploaded for you. So you've done the first 7, you're going to do the last 3. So essentially you're going to complete out the picture. So that's uploaded as well. And then what we want you to do is, by looking at where you are, where you believe you need to be, and the gap which you'll have identified in the 7 so far and in the 3 that we're going to cover between tonight and the next 2 sessions, we want you to build out what that transformation roadmap looks like on this transformation map or in this T-map. And as I articulated when we were together on Saturday, your path to transformation may start with the voice of the customer program, because customer centricity is where we want to start, and you may identify where your customer is telling you the biggest pain and the biggest opportunity is. So that may lead you down to journey prioritization. Once you know which journeys to prioritize, which have the greatest value for you and your customer, then you might start mapping those, then you might start simplifying those, then you might start automating sections of that journey using RPA, so robotics process automation technology, and then you might go forward and start using AI to make them really progressive and really rich experiences, while you're also significantly reducing the cost delivering those journeys. So that's just to give you that that example, and that roadmap, and so that's the TMAP template. Now, I've also said, you know, I'm giving you this linear plan alternative. So if you just don't visually like the idea of those kind of swim lanes up to a single strategy, you know, happy for you to use this as well. But I do ask you just to make sure that you're joining some dots so that you know, and you're telling me, you know, what the critical path is. So there's always, in fact, a set of kind of key dependencies to move from one step to the next step. So I want you to be able to show and articulate and visualize and talk through, you know, what needs to be done first, next, in order to get to that strategic North Star. And again, you know, in your packs that I would have shared and talked about a little bit on Saturday, you've got an example of what one of those looks like for a little bit of inspiration. But obviously I can't do it for you. I'm only trying to give you the best guidance that I can. And that's the heart and soul of what we want you to do in this assignment. Malgorzata, yeah.
Yes, Garvin, I have actually a question about the second assignment. Would that assignment need to actually correlate with the first assignment? So we should analyze the same business that we did in the assignment one, or could that be a different organization or different type of industry?
So one transformation, one organization, one strategy. Okay.
Because to be honest, I did. Sorry to actually disturb you, but I analyzed in the first assignment because at the moment I'm not working, so I actually picked up in industry instead of a specific organization.
Yeah, so that's fine.
So in that sense, the second assignment, can I actually analyze do all the steps that actually you mentioned in the overview? Could I actually change the sector or even
so let me
different organization
so if we need to take a little bit of offline time, let's do that for your particular case, right? I'm conscious we're only 10 minutes left, and I want to cover a bit of territory for everybody. So let me try and answer that, and then if you, Malgorzata, if I haven't answered it, let's me and you take a little bit of offline time. Okay.
Okay.
Is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay.
Brilliant. Let's do that. Okay. So, but to cover Malgorzata's question, assignment 2 is a continuation of assignment 1. So you've done your first 7. I just need you to do another 3: technology, people, and risk. So it should be the same case study, same strategy, same organization, etc., etc. Now, for some reason, Malgorzata, if you can't do the next 3, you know, people, technology, and risk, on the 7 you've already done, you'll need to make a choice. Do you just do a transformation map at 7, or do you complete it for 10 and you'll have to do the 7 on the new case, right? But Malgorzata, if we need to cover that, well, let's cover that offline. Okay. So let me just let me just keep going here for for everybody's time this evening, if that's okay. So 10 vectors evaluated for whichever case and strategy that you're covering. So that's the first thing you're doing. Then you're going to do a TMAP, which outlines what initiatives need to be done in what sequence in order for you to build up to and deliver that strategic end game that you're articulating. So that roadmap should be a response to, and it should take into account, you know, the mega strands and the strategy that has been adopted for module 1 if you've come through from module 1. If you haven't come through from module 1, if you're a new joiner in module 2, what I've said before, and I'll say it again, is use your current organization strategy, or so instead of developing new strategy, use the existing strategy. So hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, again, come to me offline. I'll make sure I cover your case study, and I have been taking calls with some of you where there's been you just had some queries to check in on. So complete the assessment, do the TMAP, and make sure you're working towards a new strategy that you've developed or your existing strategy. Claire, how you doing?
Hiya. Can you just go back to the TMAP for a minute? I'm just a bit confused on the way it's working. So for instance, there, the voice of the customer, the journey prioritization. Am I moving along the bottom as well with that? Like, I'm trying to understand why it's going from journey prioritization, journey mapping, and then down to analytics.
So I'm not telling you, great question. So this is not telling you what to do and how to do it.
Yeah.
I'm purely, Claire, just giving you an example.
Okay.
Purely
Okay. So
you
you brought your example for your simplification down to using analytics. Am I right in my thinking?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Or it could sit of an inefficiency.
Okay.
So, do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you, Claire. So look, it's a dummy, right? But it's to kind of give you a sense of how to build up the picture, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Not at all. Thank you, Claire. I've got some other hands up here. So we've got Grace and Shuna next, and then Grace and Shuna. Good, Grace.
Hey, hi, Garvan.
Hey.
Grace here. I have a question for you. It's a quick one. You mentioned now about it could be better if we focus on a key persona and then create like a journey. Would you recommend focusing on key persona, or we can do it like in an overall?
Yeah. You can do both. So some people like to do it. Grace, great question. Some people like to do it at a kind of was that Shuna? Sorry, apologies. I wasn't looking at the screen. You could do it at an enterprise level, or you can do it at a team level, or you could do it at a journey level. So it works just as well. Do it in a way that's most resonant and most relevant to you. So that tends to be easier for you to do, and actually you'll get a better learning experience from it. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you very much.
Great. And that was Grace. Now I can see you now. So thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Shuna, you were next. How are you?
Hi, Garvin. Just to go back to the map, the TMAP thing again. So could you conceivably, again, sorry, I think this is just the way my brain doesn't work. Say, remember the insurance company that we did the case study on last week? So say, for example, in that you had the pressing thing about the immediate regulatory risk.
Yeah.
So could you, for example, have a journey starting all the way over in risk?
Yeah, absolutely.
Going back to analytics.
That's right. Absolutely. So it's
okay.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So where you start is kind of almost.
You can start anywhere and bounce back.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That, again, I was sharing that as just an example of this. What it could look like. Absolutely. Each one will be different because each strategy and each transformation and all the executions need to be different. Spot on, Shuna. Does that cover your question?
It does, yeah. No, because I was just after reading, the Amazon letter, and a lot of the things that everything starts with the customer and customer centric, and I do get that, but I just wanted to clarify from this too, there are other things that can interject into.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, here's the thing. Remember, I think what we articulated on Saturday, which was, as you start out with your remediation of your risk, you shouldn't do it in the absence of being customer centric.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually the remediation of the risk, you should argue, is customer centric, right?
Yeah.
And there may be things that you would need to consider through the customer centric lens as you're doing your risk remediation. And therefore it could be that you're evaluating the biggest risk to the customer as opposed to the biggest risk to the enterprise to prioritize what to do first. That's a crude way. And that's what.
In that case, it would bounce some risk all the way back to the customer and onwards. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Okay.
Thank you.
No.
Yes, that's why actually I have a comment. That's why it's good actually to read from different sources.
Yes. Yeah, perfect. Great. So it is a joke or have I got the pronunciation wrong? Is that
It's João. No, it's João.
João?
Sorry, João would
Sorry,
be João. Yeah,
João.
João. Sorry.
How are you?
All right, and you go.
Good.
No, so my question is, so we had the 7 principles like on the first assignment. So we kind of need to introduce that to this new assignment. Like
Correct.
write back 1,000 words, like saying about technology. No, about the efficient digital engagement, that data analytics. So we wrote like 1,000 words about those topics already. So
Yeah.
we just need to include that plus, right? I don't know how many words for.
So let me go on to that, but yes is the answer. So, you know, remember I said at the weekend, like you've got 70%, 60 or 70% of the work already
Yeah.
done. Yeah, absolutely. So if you're going to keep with the same case study, and of course I
Yeah, I'm gonna use the same use case. So
That's
I'm
right.
just kind of need to keep going on the first assignment, like,
Correct.
and with the topics and
Exactly, John.
yeah, then add the transformation map and then get to overall again, or just like, do you understand my point?
I
Like,
do.
because we had the overall for the 7,
That's
so
right.
we
So
need,
you've done the 7, so you're just going to
yes,
carry the 7 through, add 3 more,
yeah,
and then do
yeah,
a map for all 10.
map, and then okay.
That's it.
Perfect.
That's
Thank
it.
you.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
So, so I think I've covered these bullet points. So please include the initiatives and milestones. You know, as I've given you some, you know, a dummy case on that are necessary to make your transformation. Sorry, there's a noisy dog. And make sure, try and join the dots. So try and, you know, identify where there are critical dependencies, because that just shows a level of sophistication. Now, the second last bullet point is to include the measures. So you'll notice that over here I have a results column, and then in the linear map I've got a results bar, right? So in there you should be identifying, as a consequence of executing the initiatives, what business results do you expect to deliver? And they can be growth in sales, it could be more profit, it could be reduced cost, it could be, you know, more capable people, it could be less risk. It's going to be whatever are the results that are going to lead you towards ultimately that strategic North Star. So that's what that second last bullet point is all about. And then, you know, what ultimately, what I'm trying to, I want you to keep up at a holistic level, okay? If you're trying to show me too many things on the transformation map, it'll get really complex, it'll get really busy. And try and, as best you can, kind of avoid that complexity. We should be able to see, like, don't have 100 points on the map. If you do, great, cool, we'll go with it, right? But what I'd say to you, make it easier on yourself and keep it holistic, so that you are keeping a strategic level, and then your reader, not me, I'll mark it, whatever it comes in as, but you've got to think through the lens of, you're going to be giving this to your board, you're going to be giving this to your executive team. So it needs to be strategic, it needs to be high level, and it needs to be holistic, so somebody can see the entire organizational shift, because that's why we call it transformation. It's a lot of things moving forward at the same time. And then to Zhao's questions, what am I looking for? I'm looking for then an executive cover note, no more than 1,500 words. So you've done 1,000, no more than 1,500, which is essentially a summary of your 10 vector assessment and your corresponding roadmap. Then the presentation to accompany that will be basically either at least that slide or that slide, apologies, at least that slide or that slide. And then, like many of you have done in assignment 1, you might have done, you know, supporting slides for each of the vectors. Again, encourage you to do that. The more you put in, the more you'll get out as a learning. And just remember that, again, you know, what we're doing is asking you to think about, you're going to be presenting this to your executive team, to your board, you know, so that the decision makers in your organization, and you're making this pitch for your transformation. So, you know, make sure it outlines the context, the recommendations, and the benefits. And the benefits are really important to put it in here. And then a stakeholder communications plan, as you will have done before, outlining identifying who are the key stakeholders and how you're going to communicate with them in order to win your transformation. Damien, how you doing?
Hi, Gavin. Really quick one. So when we do the 10, some of my assessment could possibly be that we're so far off the mark and some of these and so far behind. Okay.
Yeah.
And if we're to do the 10, like, I'm sure it's okay that some of this may just be unrealistic to do all of these 10. I mean, you're talking like potentially, right? Huge transformation required in some of these and I'm sure it could be the same for some other guys as well.
Sure.
Realism is okay. Shoot for the stars, right? I guess. So.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, not incomprehensible, or do you know what I mean? But absolutely, it's got to be progressive. You've got to be ambitious. You've got to be stretching.
Yes, but it's to do all 10. There's so much to do, if that makes sense. It's just,
it does.
Yeah.
It does, absolutely. But you know what? That's what we want you to paint the picture of. So what will be done is a different thing than what should be done. So Damien, what I want you to think about, frame it in your mind, is what should be done. In the ideal world, what will be done will always be different.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Thanks, Gavin. Thank you.
Thank you, Damien. Very good. Yeah. Katie, how you doing?
Hi, Garvin. I also just have a really quick question. If we're referring to the 7 other elements that we had in assignment 1 in this assignment as well, could that impact our plagiarism score? Like, would we accidentally be plagiarizing ourselves? Like, do we need to reference the A1? Or that doesn't matter for this?
No, you're all good with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
no worries there. No.
Thank you.
No, brilliant. Great question, though. Thank you, Katie. Excellent stuff. Mark, how you doing?
Just maybe to Damien's point, I mean, I suppose when I was doing assignment 1, I was trying to be, let's call it, realistic in terms of the 7 dimensions. Like, you can't boil an ocean and to go and put it in is in some ways unrealistic. So I didn't go say, yeah, I'm going to go to get us all to like 10 out of 10, like on each of these 7 dimensions. I mean, is that at least from what I'm hearing from you, realistic? It's not that I'm saying it's just not going to be possible to do anything on.
Stretching and realistic. Yeah. I think that's good, Mark. And the other thing as well is, I mean, you'll remember from, and this doesn't articulate now what I'm going to say, which is you might take the assumption that you want to reach 10 on all the vectors, but you might take the assumption that we don't need to be 10. We need to be 7. We only need to move from 6 to 7, or we're fine as we are. Actually, we don't need to spend any time on being open because that's just not relevant to us. But actually, customer is where we're hurt. So we're going to put all our bets in customer. Don't do anything in open, because that's really not what you foresee as strategic. So, does that make sense?
Yeah, and probably just to follow up to that, then obviously with the TMAP coming into the equation with a let's call it a time horizon to it. There's for me, it feels like there's potentially a greater flexibility to reach point 10, if you want to call that, because you may well be just over a journey of 5, 6 years or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Whereas in my head, I think of like my organization, it's strategic planning horizon is typically 3 years.
Yeah.
So that was what I was saying as being what's feasible within a 3-year horizon.
Yeah.
But if you have that longer perspective, then maybe I need to rethink about some of the scores or ambition for those initial 7.
Yeah. So,
what do you think, or should I just stick to the 7 as is and go from there?
So I don't want you to redo what you've already done, right? And
happy.
Yeah, can you hear me, Mark?
Yeah, I'm just saying happy. I'll just stick to what I've got to do.
I don't want you to redo what you've already done, and that's for everybody. Don't redo what you've already done. Build forward from it. Adjust it if you really feel you need to, and so on. I'm not going to judge it, Mark, on the basis of whether you pick 3 or 5. I'm not going to judge you based on in your assignment and your score. I'm not going to judge you on how wild or how conservative it is, right? What I'm going to be looking for in the marking is that you've understood and applied what we're covering in the program in a cogent and in a comprehensive way. So I'm not going to test
which is fair, and to some extent it's reflecting the fact that you don't see like my organization's strategy document. I can't actually share it. So where I've gone and cited a particular perspective, you in some ways have to take it, well, that's not like unusual, that they don't have a transformation like or a technology like strategy, for example. They might have an efficiency like a strategy, but not a technology strategy, for example. So it's taken on faith, I guess, in some ways.
It is. So I'm not going to second guess your strategy, your ambition, anything like that. What I'm going to be looking for is, and there's the grading criteria down at the bottom there, are you clear? Have you got a cogent argument? Is it summarized really well? Are you showing business value? Are you understanding and applying the frameworks back to that kind of real world challenge? Do you know who your stakeholders are? And are you being creative and original with this? Are you making it your own? Is another way to describe that. So that's what I'm looking for. Does that help, Mark? Hopefully that's okay, Mark. Yeah, you're on. Niraja, I think I skipped you, and I have to owe you an apology. Therefore, I was looking at
no worries.
Sorry, apologies. I wanted to make sure we got you in. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Good.
Garvin, when you're talking about the strategy, right, the company's, the organization strategy, say, for example, the organization strategy is customer experience, sustainability, and all these things. So do I need to cover all those, say, for example, in this digital transformation, sustainability is not the right, well, I'm thinking about the digital pollution again in this sustainability topic. So I don't want to touch that topic. So that is okay, right? So if I take one strategic point and then go from there, will that be fine?
That will be okay. Absolutely. You just tell me that you're doing that in your summary document. Yeah. But equally, if let's say your organizational strategy has got 3 themes, and one of them is sustainability, maybe ask yourself the question, am I losing the opportunity to think about how digital could be
sustainable?
An incredible power to support your sustainability strategy. So that's for you to answer, Niraj, not for me. You have to ask yourself that question. And then conclude on whether you're going to include it in your study or not. But just make it clear that you have or you haven't, and that's fine. And again, I'm not going to question your selection of your case study. Your ambition. Yeah, absolutely. But lots of people will come on and they'll say, listen, we've got a 5-point strategic plan. I'm going to focus on one of those points, which is efficiency. And you're going to apply a digital transformation to drive efficiency. That's fine.
Yeah,
that works.
That's fine. Okay, fantastic. Thanks so much, Garvin.
Okay, not at all. Thank you. Jamie, how you doing?
Garvin, how you doing? Apologies, my camera's playing Invisible Man again for me as I'm here. Come here, very quick one. Did I hear you correctly in terms of, we'll say for the 1,500 words, can we reuse the 1,000 words from CA1, add to it, adjust, or are you looking for 1,500 new words?
I'm going to leave that with you. If you are made the most compelling and it's the most fitting now to carry into assignment 2, you use them by all means. I'm not going to mark you I'm not going to mark you down for using them. I'm going in looking to mark everybody up. So I start on the basis that I'm trying to give everybody 100. If you think that your existing 1,000 words are your best chance to get you to whatever level you want to get to, you use them. And I'm not going to be marking down. I'm only trying to mark up. I'm kind of giving you a real politician's answer now. I know that, Jamie.
All right, that's all right.
Right, so I haven't seen yours yet, but I would never tell you online or not, online whether they'd work or not. But if you've done the work and you're happy with it, of course, reuse it and just like fold it forward. Don't do rework, folks. This assignment is meant to be a continuation of the previous one. If you've really nailed it and you're happy to just add to it, I'm happy to go with that.
Can I ask, with that in mind, and again, I know you mentioned it on Saturday, ballpark it, and I'm not tying you down, when can we expect the results of CA1s? I'm cognizant of, for making our own judgment on, well, how good is CA1?
I'm expecting to get them done by the end of next week, and then the IOB, I'm looking down here to see if I can see my diary, have said that they're expecting then to get them out to you by, I think it's Friday the 2nd of May, isn't it? Yeah, or Monday the 5th. So that's, expect them out in 2.5 weeks from now, sort of type of thing.
Okay, close enough. So to the thing, and finally, I'm right in saying when you mention pertinent megatrends there, you are referring to the megatrends that we would have covered off for those of us who are on.
Yes.
With Kelvin.
Yes, absolutely, Jim.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, not at all. Thank you, Ken. Kenneth, you were next.
This is kind of tangential to Jamie's question. Okay. So in terms of the first assessment, because I know I was in touch with you about it, if I presented the picture and I want to present the complete opposite picture now in assessment 2, might be easier for me. Are you gonna look back to assessment 1 basically to see what was presented and go, this is totally different?
No.
Perfect. That's it.
No, I won't. I know I won't do that. Now, if you ask me to do it, I will do it, but I won't automatically go and do it. I'll read it in its own, because most people do evolve from 1 to 2. The odd time people will swap horses, but it's seldom. But most people will kind of go, okay, they'll either get the feedback, or just with maturity, they'll kind of push it on to its kind of its natural evolution. Kind of, does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just thinking it might be easier to sort of, or obviously significantly through one of these projects.
Yeah.
So it might be easier to pretend we're not for assessment 2. Thanks.
Not at all. Hope that helps, and hopefully everybody is getting some value out of the questions as we go around as well. Right, it is 8:45. I'm sure you're all tired and mad and gagging to get away, but hopefully that was worthwhile covering. The rest is just a little bit about the scoring down the bottom. So as I say, they're up on the portal now. So get started by all means. And then just a few closing words. Hopefully I've covered all the pre-reading bar the 2025 text trends tonight, and just implicitly in the stuff, so I didn't call it out. But if you want to get your teeth into good perspective on tech trends, it's a worthwhile read. So the link is in the study guide. And again, last one, it's great to hear some of you talking about. Please do read the Andy Jassy 2024 stakeholder letter for Amazon. We'll be doing a little bit of work on that. When you get your slides, that's kind of us doing a wrap. We don't have time now to do an open mic, so there you go. But I'll see if I can carve out some time to do it if there's interest in it on the Saturday that we're going to be together. In the back of the first year that we ran this program, I got Carl Coffey, who's the CIO. The chief architect he's in a post, smashing guy. He gave us a presentation, and what I'm going to do is include his slides. Interesting, he used the same McKinsey one that I did, but he's got some nice kind of really relevant discussion points, and it's a bit of reading in the background on cloud, on agile, on DevOps, on culture, again on architecture, and some thoughts about how to move forward on technology. So I just thought I'd let you know that is there in the background. But that's my little round of applause, which is also to kind of more or less signal we're at the end of tonight's session, folks. Thanks a mil for all the great questions. If anybody wants to hang on, I'll hang on for a couple of minutes if you've any more. But I'll stop recording, and I will